A lot of winning, losing, and titleless streaks have been broken in the last year, so let's get streaking next. For the second straight week, I am stealing one of Doktor O'Kay's ideas, so today we're going streaking as we take a look back at all of the long streaks that have been broken over the last year. And we've had a lot of big returns this year, so we've got a lot to get to. Now before we start, I do have one note. These streaks are not going to count main event, speed, NXT, Evolve, LFG, or other live events. This is strictly televised shows on the main roster, being Raw, SmackDown, and the PLEs. So let's get started with the longest streaks without a singles title on the main roster. And this is one place from last year where not much has changed. So still, the male with the longest streak without a singles title is Jimmy Uso, as he debuted on May 24th, 2010. Well, we'll just have to see if he's going to be able to start and try to catch his brother, but still not optimistic about it right now. Well, Kairi Sane is the female who has that distinction, as she debuted in the Royal Rumble match on January 28th, 2018. It is now interesting that the IC title is available to her now, but it still looks like she's focused on being a Kabuki warrior with Asuka. However, between these two, we're going to say that Kairi is more likely to win a singles title than Jimmy, and we're going to make this comparison at the end of each of these categories. Our next category is no title at all on the main roster, and for the men, that is Pete Dunne, as he had a one-off match on Raw on November 16th, 2017. Unfortunately for him, there's not a rayo of light for him on TV since April, so it's looking pretty unlikely for him. And for the women, that is Candice LeRae, and she debuted in the Royal Rumble on January 27, 2019, 1 year after Kairi, and she had quite a fall in the men's tag team ladder match at SummerSlam, and we've not seen her since. So between the two of them, I'm going to say that Pete Dunne is more likely to win any title at all. Up next are the longest title droughts, which just means that these superstars have won titles, but it's been a while since they won. And for the men, we had a big return in Rusev this year. He lost the US title on January 27th, 2019 on the Royal Rumble pre-show, where I happened to be at in Phoenix. But the longest drought for any title for the men is Bo Dallas, or now Uncle Howdy, as Dallas lost the tag team titles as a member of the B team with Curtis Axel on September 13th, 2018. But for the women, it's the same person for longest singles drought and longest any title drought, and that is AJ Lee, as she of course returned after over a decade off when she lost the Divas title on November 23rd, 2014 to Nikki Bella. But of course here, we think AJ's got a pretty good shot to win something, and specifically the women's IC title here very quickly, so she has a better chance of stopping the streak. So let's switch from titles to wins and losses. So our next category is current winning streaks on the main roster, and we have lots of draws and no contests in WWE, so we will distinguish those streaks as it will come up quite often. So let's start with the men's singles wins. Cody Rhodes had a 10-match winning streak last year at this time for the Doc, but now he has a 5-match winning streak, and that is still somehow the longest. But if we make that distinguishment like we talked about, Sami Zayn has 8 matches without a loss because he had a no contest against John Cena in the first of his US title Open Challenge defenses. And for the women's singles wins, Becky Lynch currently has 7 straight wins, starting with her women's IC title win, but Tiffany Stratton is still undefeated in 2025, as she is 13-0-1-1 in singles matches, as she has 1 draw via a double countout and 1 no contest with Jade Cargill this year. So I think we really should say that Tiffany deserves this one. Now with these names involved, I have to admit I'm not quite ready to make my official crown jewel picks. But for now, I think I'm going to say that Tiffy loses first, by about an hour before Cody Rhodes loses. Up next is our men's winning streak in any type of match, and we have the same two names here, just different numbers, as Cody Rhodes has 7 straight wins overall, but Sami Zayn has 9 matches without a loss as he is 8-0-1. Now for the women's any wins streak, Alexa Bliss leads the way with 5 straight wins, starting with her Tag Team Championship win at SummerSlam. But again, it is still Tiffy time, because in all matches this year, she is 16-0-1-1 in her 18 matches. And again, I will use the same two names here, as Tiffy is going to lose right before Cody Rhodes loses at Crown Jewel. Up next is the winning streak for men's traditional tag matches, which only mean a 2-on-2 tag match. And I also have to note here that this goes by the individual and not by the team, so Damian Priest still has not lost a traditional tag a whole year later after he was the pick here last year, but he's also only had 4 tag matches since last September, so he now has 14 straight wins since his last loss in a traditional tag on October 7th, 2023. Now on the women's side for longest streak in traditional tags, Jade Cargill has managed to lose the tag team titles twice without ever losing a traditional tag match, as she is clearly the pick here at 15-0. So while I had hoped Damian Priest and R-Truth would become a tag team, we have no indication of that happening yet. So I think Jade's going to be placed into a random tag match yet again with Tiffy before long, and this time they will lose. So I'm going to say that Jade will lose her very impressive streak next. Now for the men's winning streak in any type of tag match, Damian Priest has also taken this spot over now, as he now has 7 straight wins dating back to April 29th, 2024. And I do just want to make a quick note here that Andrade had 7 any tag wins in a row until he lost at SummerSlam, but I think it's safe to say at this point that he moved on quite quickly and quite far away from that loss. For women's any tag wins, it's Jade Cargill yet again, as she has 12 straight wins in any tag match since her only loss to the unholy union of Fire and Dawn on June 15th, 2024. And yet, despite that, she is not a tag team champion, even though she beat them on August 31st, 2024. Very strange and peculiar how that could happen. Well, nonetheless, these are the same two people here, so I have the same answer that Jade will lose first. So let's switch from wins to losses, and that means our next category is current losing streaks. So first, men's singles losses. Well, it was Otis last year when he was tied with Baron Corbin with 15, but Corbin got out of Dodge so that he couldn't keep up with that streak, so our number 1 guy has lost 5 more singles matches, and he stands alone with 20 straight singles losses since his last win on November 7th, 2022. For women's singles losses, and despite being the US champion until April 25th, 2025, Chelsea Green has no singles wins since before that on March 7th. Which means she has somehow accumulated 11 straight singles losses. And I'm going to give Maxine Dupree honorable mention here, as she has 11 straight singles matches without a win, but she's just 0-10-1, so she's not quite yet to Chelsea's level, but I guess she could lose this week on Raw. However, Chelsea is on TV all the time, so she will find a way to win before Otis does. Up next are men's losses in any type of match, and Grayson Waller has found no success yet after dropping Austin Theory for the New Day, as he has now lost 16 straight matches since his last win on August 15th, 2024. And on the women's side, Candice LeRae proved her worth to Nia Jax on October 18th, 2024, when she was filling in for the sick Tiffany Stratton, but Candice has lost every match after that to rack up 16 losses herself. At least Waller is in the proximity of some possible wins now that he's with the New Day, and Candice hasn't been seen since she got that very, very ugly bruise on her leg, so yeah, I think we have to go with Waller to win first. Our next is losing streak for men's traditional tag matches, and Solo Sikoa always has a bunch of dudes around him, but that hasn't helped because he's lost 7 straight traditional tags since his last win on September 27th, 2024. Though I will have to give both members of DIY honorable mention here, as they are 0-6-1 since their last win at the Royal Rumble on February 1st. Now for the longest losing streak for women's traditional tags, we have Nikki Cross being in that spot all the way since last year when she had 8, dating back to October 4th, 2020. And guess what? She hasn't had a match of any type, let alone a traditional tag. So yeah, she still has exactly 8 losses in this match type. But if you want to remove her since she hasn't had a match, we will at least point out that Natalya is right behind her with 7 straight losses in traditional tags since her last win on March 24th, 2023. But I will say that this is the easiest pick between the members of this group, as Solo Sikoa and the MFT will be picking up a bunch of wins soon as they now start to reload. Up next are losses in any type of tag match. Now going strictly by losses, we have a tie with Waller and Johnny Gargano of DIY having 9, but really we have to give the edge here to Johnny as he's 0-10-1 since that Royal Rumble win. And then that makes Ciampa 1 behind him at 0-9-1 since he was not in that weird 8-man tag match against the Wyatt Six. For women's any tag losses, Nia Jax, she had her last win with Candice in that same match on October 8th, 2024, but she simply had more chances to lose since then than Candice, so she is now up to 9 tag losses in a row. But between them, Johnny is at least in a real tag team, so DIY definitely captures a victory before Nia. And in our last category, we have to slow things down and play that sad music for In Memoriam as we talk about all of the very long streaks that were broken in the past year. Now last year, Carlito broke an incredible streak of 5,324 days between singles wins, and behind him was CM Punk with 3,876 days between those singles wins. But this past year brought Punk's wife, AJ Lee, as the biggest return, and while she broke her streak of 3,827 days between any type of win, well, she is still at 3,861 days and counting between singles wins since her last win versus Summer Rae on March 9th, 2015. So will she get a singles win in the next 2 weeks so that she can have her streak stopped in less days than Punk's? I have to say that I doubt it, but AJ really only had 1 loss during that entire streak when she lost on March 16th, 2015 to Nikki Bella, who is our next person to talk about as she also stopped a very long streak when she broke a 4-match losing streak. That was a mere 2,499 days long when she beat Chelsea Green on July 14th, 2015 on Raw, since her last win versus Ruby Riott on September 10th, 2018. But it wasn't all women, as the men also had returning superstars themselves after some long layoffs, and Brock Lesnar is the biggest name, but also the shortest streak, as he had 847 days between beating Cody Rhodes on May 27, 2023, and then John Cena a couple weeks ago at WrestlePalooza. Next is Aleister Black, who returned after a much longer time away, as his 1,698 days between his win versus Johnny Knockout in a Raw Underground match on September 7th, 2020, until he beat The Miz when he returned on May 2nd, 2025. But an even longer streak was Rusev, as he had 1,960 days between his wins since he danced with No Way Jose after beating him in a mere 30 seconds on December 23rd, 2019, until he beat Otis on May 5th, 2025. There were several other streaks of more than a year without wins that were stopped since last September, so let's go through all of those. And most surprisingly, Kairi Sane had been back since November of 2023, and she's already been a tag team champion, but she picked up her first singles win versus Liv Morgan on May 26th, 2025, which was 1,771 days since she beat Bayley on July 20th, 2020. Almost as surprising is the other Kabuki warrior in Asuka, as she had 556 days between singles wins when she returned to win her first round triple threat match of the Queen of the Ring tournament. And I will say, even though that was quite a while, she only had one singles loss in that time. But until AJ Lee's return, perhaps Alexa Bliss's return was the biggest of the year, as she snapped her streak of 788 days between wins when she beat Candice LeRae on February 7th, 2025 on SmackDown. But her ally of convenience partner and tag team champion partner, Charlotte Flair, returned from injury herself at the Royal Rumble, and it was not quite the same kind of return since it was simply due to injury and she had only lost her last match, but it was still 434 days since her last win when she won that Royal Rumble on February 1st. Kiana James was also out due to injury for more than a year, but after a quick loss in her first match back, she won a tag team match with Julia just last week on SmackDown that stopped a 480-day streak between wins. Unfortunately, Piper Niven is now injured, but at least she stopped a 14-match singles losing streak of 459 days by beating BFAB on January 17th, 2025. Now, while BFAB herself is still looking for her first singles win, at least she got her first main roster win of any type in a tag team win just 1 week later by beating Chelsea and Piper with Michin as her partner 727 days after her first ring appearance at the 2023 Royal Rumble. Raquel Rodriguez missed 7 months of action last year, but it is still surprising that she went 378 days between singles wins when she beat Bayley on March 10th, 2025, which she just coincidentally just reprised this past week on Raw. Now for the men, despite being a former WWE champion, Kofi Kingston picked up his first singles win in almost 2 years, or 707 days, when he beat Penta on the August 25th edition of Raw. And that stopped a 12-match winless streak in which he went 0-11-1. Admittedly, Kofi spent most of that time in tag matches, but the LWO's Cruz del Toro and Joaquin Wilde stopped a 15-match and 913-day losing streak in any type of tag match by winning the #1 Contenders Triple Threat Tag on July 21st, having last beaten the Maximum Male Models on January 20th, 2023. The War Raiders actually had a 2-match winning streak as the Viking Raiders before Eric and then before Ivar both happened to get injured, but they still had 406 days between wins when they returned just after last year's video when they beat the Alpha Academy on October 14th, 2024. Those are the only streaks of more than 1 year, but we have to do 2 honorable mentions here, as Tommaso Ciampa went just under a year at 357 days between singles wins when he beat Chris Sabin on May 23rd, 2025. And likewise, Karrion Kross went the same 357 days between singles wins when he beat Sami Zayn on July 21st, 2025. And with that recent win versus the current US champion, I think he deserves some more matches, so we still want Kross. We also had some very long title droughts vanish, and it was stunning that the Street Profits went 1,516 days between titles when they finally defeated DIY on March 14th, 2025 on SmackDown, as their prior reign had them switch from the Raw tag titles to the SmackDown tag titles due to the outcome of the draft before they lost to the Dirty Dogs of Rude and Ziggler on January 8th, 2021. Naomi had been a tag champion herself a few times, but her shocking cash-in on Io Sky at Evolution on July 13th, 2025 stopped a 2,884-day streak since her last singles championship reign ended on August 20th, 2017 to Natalya. And of course, John Cena became the never-seen 17 at WrestleMania 41, but it seemed like we'd never see him, well, never see him at all, or at least never see him win another title, 2,989 days between his last title reign, as he lost to Bray Wyatt on February 12th, 2017 inside the Elimination Chamber. But we also have a couple fun miscellaneous ones to talk about here, and despite being a former women's tag team champion and having 2 shots at the title with Liv Morgan early in 2022, Rhea Ripley didn't have a traditional tag win for 1,162 days until she teamed up and with Io Sky beat Roxanne Perez and Julia on May 12th, 2025. So I guess they're teaming up again, and we'll see if they can beat a true tag team this time in the Kabuki Warriors at Crown Jewel. El Grande Americano never had a WWE win before. He defeated Dragon Lee in his debut match on March 24th, 2025, but it is certainly great to see his triumphant return after being blackballed following decades as the face of Lucha Libre. Just unfortunately the record books are not so good outside of WWE, so I can't tell you exactly how long it was between his wins. And lastly, Dr. O'Kay, wherever he may be, would be proud for me to note that Roman Reigns finally broke his streak of 13 straight singles matches in which he did not win without receiving outside help, when he finally beat Big Bronson Reed all on his own at Clash in Paris on August 31st, 2025. His previous clean win was against Riddle on June 17th, 2022 on SmackDown, meaning he went 1,171 days between clean singles wins, which he had a 10-3 record in those 13 matches. Wow, those were a lot of streaks broken since last year's video at the end of September 2024, which made this one of the most, if not the most, heavily researched video of the year, so I really hope that you did not miss me going streaking. But if you missed this week's Stop the 10 count, where I rehashed the huge botch in the WWE Women's title match, be sure to go right on over here and check that out. But until next time, I am the SportsZu, and this has been a podcast that still needs a new name.